This is kind of I'm going to flip the question on its head. Can estrogen turn Republicans blue?
You mean testosterone or estrogen?
That's such a politically charged question. I see what you did there. Yeah.
You caught me backward. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll talk. You wrote this great article. Can testosterone turn Democrats red? And I actually, well, give us the details, because when I don't know where I saw this first, but I just laughed at it because there's got to be something funny to this. Because I mean, it's just got to be funny. So, what do you think?
So, I read this piece by a researcher named Paul Zak, who has studied various oxytocin and testosterone and other hormones to kind of look at behavioral effects. And he did this study on 136 college students, male college students, where he asked them what their affiliation was politically. And he divided them into four groups: the strongly affiliated Republicans, the weakly affiliated Republicans, the strongly affiliated Democrats, and the weakly affiliated Democrats, and kind of looked at them into those four buckets. Then he gave them testosterone. He gave them a dose of testosterone, increased all of their levels, looked at their levels to make sure that they all increased, and then questioned them about their political affiliations and political feelings. And what he found, and this was maybe not what he expected, but it was fascinating results, because what he found was that those who were strongly tied to Republicanism didn't change their thoughts or political ideology. Those who were strongly deep, hard blue Democrats didn't change as well. The weakly affiliated Republicans also didn't change their political views. But the weakly affiliated Democrats flipped over to the Republican side. Wow. So the weakly affiliated Democrats turned red. Now, why? Why were they more receptive to, they asked them about different Republican politicians. They were much more open to it. And so the question is, how do you interpret that? What does that mean? And it's speculated. It was a small study. It would have to be replicated. It needs more study, all of that stuff. But, one thought was that those who were expressing themselves to be Democrats, weakly affiliated Democrats, were doing so because they were afraid to call themselves Republicans in today's academic climate, which is predominantly, to which you both could tell,
we're in it,
could verify, certainly swings far to the left. And so admitting that you're favorable to Republicanism was difficult. And the testosterone gave them the courage to come out as the Republicans that they actually were, if they weren't too entrenched in the Democratic ideology. That's one interpretation of the evidence. It was a fascinating study. I love this stuff. He's going to follow it up hopefully someday with some more stuff. But he does say in the article that when you look at traditional, when you look at bodybuilders and you look at those who are, involved in physical culture, they tend to skew to the right. They tend to skew, a little
such as the entire UFC.
Right. Yes. So, and it makes sense too, because they're and I did a column in Muscular Development a few years ago about kind of like the issues of where you would fall in terms of socialism versus, more of a capitalist kind of perspective. And there have been studies, and bodybuilders skew capitalistic, because I think it's the idea that you need to put in the time, you need to work, that effort is that what you get is earned, that nothing is handed to you, that nothing is, that equity. I don't think typically they don't have an idea that equity should be even for the guy who puts in 2 hours a week in the gym versus the guy who puts 8 hours a week in the gym. The guy who does everything right. So I think bodybuilders, just because of, we've every ounce of muscle, every quarter of an inch of arm girth is something that blood, sweat, and tears went into. And so bodybuilders tend to be much less socialistic in terms of economics, because I think that same sort of mindset translates.
That's a lot of chicken breast, buddy. A lot of chicken breast.
I think we could just look at the hormonal profiles, prefrontal cortex and corpus callosum of we libertarians, who are correct anyway, and just prescribe that to everybody. That's how we can do it.
There you go.
I'm surprised they found any Republicans on campus.
Yeah, well, you guys, you're dealing with this on a daily basis, right? I mean, you're seeing the politics play out in 2023 campus life.